Hello there, and welcome to the Rare Mindset channel. I'm so glad you found your way here. Tonight, you don't have to rush anywhere. You can simply arrive and let your mind soften around the edges. As you listen, allow your breathing to slow in its own natural rhythm, like gentle waves that don't need to be controlled, only noticed. Rare Mindset is a quiet place where psychology becomes a kind of bedtime story, calm, educational, and reassuring. We'll explore how a child grows, how the brain wires itself, how emotions take shape, how language and identity gradually unfold. Not as a checklist, but as a living documentary you can drift through. If any part of you feels alert or restless, that's okay. Just let the information pass through like warm light, interesting but not demanding. And as we begin, you may notice something comforting. Development is not a race. It's a patient, unfolding process, one gentle step at a time. Chapter 1. The Foundation, Brain Plasticity and Early Attachment. Fact 1. Rapid synaptogenesis. In the earliest years of life, the brain is busy in a way that's almost impossible to picture, like a city being built in soft, glowing time-lapse. Psychological and neuroscience research suggests that during this period the brain forms an enormous number of synaptic connections, linking neurons into networks that will later support movement, language, memory, and emotion. This is neuroplasticity in its most expansive form, the brain's natural ability to shape itself through experience. Warm voices, faces, gentle routines, and safe exploration become more than moments. They become patterns. And beneath the surface, the brain is learning what the world tends to be like, not through conscious thought, but through repeated, quiet exposure that gradually turns sensation into structure. Fact 2. Secure attachment theory. Closely connected to early brain growth is the way a child learns emotional safety through relationship. Attachment theory, associated with John Bowlby and later Mary Ainsworth, describes how consistent caregiving can form a secure base. In simple terms, when a caregiver responds reliably, feeding, soothing, protecting, the child's nervous system begins to expect that distress can be met and eased. The famous strange situation research explored how young children respond to brief separations and reunions, showing different patterns of attachment. Secure attachment isn't about perfect parenting. It's about a general sense of steadiness. And from that steadiness, something beautiful happens. Curiosity becomes possible. The child explores and returns and explores again, like breathing in and out. Fact 3. Serve and return interaction. In a similar quiet way, development is shaped by a gentle back and forth between baby and adult, often called serve and return. A baby serves with a sound, a look, a wiggle of the hands, a cry. An attentive adult returns with eye contact, a soothing voice, a mirrored expression, or a comforting touch. Researchers describe this as a biological necessity because it helps build the brain's architecture for communication and regulation. Over time, these tiny exchanges teach the infant wordlessly, when I reach out, something reaches back. And that lesson doesn't just support language, it supports trust, attention, and emotional balance. Even the smallest moments, one calm response, can become part of a larger pattern of connection. Fact 4. The first 1,000 days. There is a widely discussed window in developmental science, often called the first 1,000 days, roughly from pregnancy through about age 2. This period matters not because it decides everything, but because the body and brain are especially receptive to shaping influences. Studies in human development describe critical and sensitive periods, times when certain systems, like vision, language sounds, and stress regulation, are more easily tuned by experience. Some researchers also use the phrase biological embedding, meaning early environments can become written into the way the nervous system tends to respond. And still, it's important to hold this gently. Development remains flexible. The first 1,000 days are not a single doorway that closes, but a soft foundation, like the first layers of paint on a long, evolving canvas. Fact 5. Oxytocin and bonding. With bonding, the body contributes its own quiet chemistry. Oxytocin is a hormone often associated with connection, released during warm, close contact like cuddling, gentle holding, and skin-to-skin care. Research in neuroendocrinology suggests oxytocin can support calm states by interacting with stress systems in the body. For an infant who cannot regulate everything alone, this kind of calming input is deeply practical. The caregiver's presence helps the baby's physiology settle. You can imagine it as two nervous systems gently syncing, like instruments finding the same key. Importantly, this isn't magic and it isn't a cure, just a natural mechanism that supports ease and safety. Over time, repeated soothing contact can help a child learn what calm feels like from the inside. Fact 6. Epigenetic influence. Beneath behavior and hormones, there is another subtle layer: epigenetics. Epigenetics explores how environments can influence gene expression, turning certain genes up or down, without changing the DNA sequence itself. Developmental researchers describe this as one way nature and nurture intertwine. A child's experiences, stress levels, caregiving consistency, nutrition, enrichment, may shape which biological programs become more active. This isn't a simple one-to-one script, and it doesn't mean a child is permanently set by early life. Instead, it suggests the body is responsive, like a sensitive instrument adjusting to the room it's played in. And that responsiveness is part of human adaptability. The same principle that allows stress to shape the system also allows safety, support, and stability to strengthen it. Fact 7. Myelination process. As childhood continues, the brain doesn't only make connections, it also speeds them up. Myelination is the process of coating neural pathways with myelin, a kind of insulating layer that helps signals travel more efficiently. You can picture it like smoothing and paving roads that were once rough dirt paths. As white matter develops, many skills become faster and more coordinated. Processing speed, attention control, and the ability to combine information. Researchers note that myelination unfolds over years, not days, and different regions mature on different timelines. That's why a child might be quick with words but slower with impulse control, or coordinated in movement but still easily overwhelmed emotionally. Growth is not uniform, it's orchestral, with each section joining when it's ready, in its own time. Fact 8. The amygdala's early role. Deep in the brain sits a small, ancient structure called the amygdala, often involved in detecting emotional significance, especially signals of safety or threat. In early life, this survival-oriented system is particularly influential because the brain's more deliberative, logic regions mature later. Developmental psychology often emphasizes that young children react first with feeling and body responses before they can explain anything in words. This doesn't mean they are irrational. It means their nervous system is prioritizing protection. When the environment is steady and caregivers are responsive, the amygdala can learn a calmer baseline, less scanning, less alarm. Over time, as higher brain networks mature, children gain more capacity to pause, interpret, and choose. But in the beginning, emotion is the first language of safety. Fact 9. Survival reflexes. Even before learning, infants arrive with built-in reflexes, small, automatic movements that support survival. The rooting reflex helps a baby turn toward touch near the mouth, supporting feeding. The grasp reflex closes tiny fingers around an adult's hand, creating contact and closeness. These primitive reflexes are often discussed in developmental science as evolutionary gifts, simple, reliable behaviors that work before voluntary control is fully online. And there is something quietly moving about them. A newborn doesn't have to decide to seek connection. The body already reaches. Over time, many reflexes fade as the brain's cortex takes greater control, allowing more intentional movement. But those early reflexes leave an emotional impression. Life begins not with independence, but with instinctive relationship. Fact 10. Pruning for efficiency. As the brain builds an abundance of connections, it also begins to refine them. Synaptic pruning is the process of reducing connections that are rarely used, strengthening pathways that are repeatedly activated. This use it or lose it principle is often described as the brain's way of becoming efficient, less like a wild forest of possibilities, and more like a well-traveled set of trails. Importantly, pruning isn't loss in a sad sense, it's specialization. It helps skills become smoother, language patterns become more fluent, familiar faces easier to recognize, routines easier to anticipate. In supportive environments, pruning tends to reinforce healthy, adaptive pathways. And because learning continues across childhood, new trails can still form. The brain is not a finished sculpture. It's a living landscape, always quietly responding to where life asks it to grow. Chapter 2. Sensory Worlds: How Infants Perceive Life. Fact 11. Neonatal Vision Limits. In the beginning, an infant's visual world is soft and close, like a gentle vignette around the edges. Studies of early visual acuity suggest newborns see best at about 8 to 12 inches away, roughly the distance between a baby in someone's arms and a caregiver's face. It's a tender design, almost poetic. The world is introduced through connection. High detail comes later, but faces, contrast, and movement already matter. When a caregiver leans in, the baby's eyes are meeting something that is both biologically meaningful and emotionally calming. Over time, the visual system grows sharper, and the child's gaze expands outward. But early on, the brain is learning a simple message through sight. Closeness is where safety and meaning live. Fact 12. Auditory preference. Long before infants understand words, they understand voices. Psychological research on prenatal auditory learning suggests babies become familiar with the rhythm, pitch, and melody of the mother's voice while still in the womb. After birth, many infants show a preference for that voice over others, not because it is better, but because it is known. The nervous system often relaxes around familiarity. This early recognition also hints at how the brain organizes experience. Patterns repeated over time become anchors. Even in sleep, a newborn can respond to voice tone. Soft, steady speech can settle the body, while sharp changes can startle. In this way, sound becomes one of the first emotional environments. The baby isn't only hearing language, they're hearing regulation, reassurance, and the promise of return. Fact 13. Olfactory bonding. Scent is another quiet bridge between infant and caregiver. Research in early development suggests newborns can recognize their mother's smell within hours of birth, relying on a rapidly functioning olfactory system. While vision begins close and blurry, smell arrives with surprising clarity, an intimate compass that helps guide bonding and feeding. Some researchers describe the olfactory bulb as highly active early in life, making scent a powerful cue for comfort. For an infant, the caregiver's scent becomes part of the brain's map of safety. It's not a conscious decision, it's a nervous system recognition. And in a soothing way, this reminds us that attachment is not only emotional or psychological, it's sensory. Warmth, scent, sound, and touch combine into a single message the body can understand. You belong here. Fact 14. The visual cliff. There is a classic line of research in perception called the visual cliff study, associated with Alina Gibson and Richard Walk. In gentle terms, it explored when babies begin to perceive depth and respond with caution. Around the latter part of the first year, often as mobility increases, many infants hesitate when confronted with what looks like a sudden drop, even when the surface is actually safe. What's calming to remember is that fear here is not a flaw, it's learning. Depth perception is developing, and the brain is beginning to link visual information with bodily risk. This is the mind building protective wisdom. And just as important, babies also look to caregivers for cues, checking a face, a tone, a posture, before deciding what to do. The world is interpreted not alone, but with guidance. Fact 15. Haptic learning. A baby's hands are curious, but their mouth is often their first laboratory. Developmental research describes how infants explore objects orally, learning texture, firmness, temperature, and shape through the rich sensory nerves of the lips and tongue. This is called haptic learning, and it's closely tied to the somatosensory cortex, where touch information is processed. To an adult, it might look simple, even messy, but to the infant brain, it's detailed data collection. The mouth provides precise feedback, helping build the child's understanding of what objects are and how they differ. Over time, as motor control improves and safety boundaries are gently taught, exploration shifts toward hands and eyes. But early on, the child is doing what humans do best, learning through direct experience, slowly building a sensory vocabulary of the world. Fact 16. Intermodal perception. As infants develop, their senses begin to cooperate, like instruments learning to play together. Intermodal perception is the ability to connect information across senses, matching a voice to a face, or linking the feel of an object with how it looks. Research on sensory integration suggests babies can begin forming these cross-modal connections surprisingly early, creating a unified experience rather than isolated sensory fragments. This matters because life is not presented in separate channels. It arrives as a single flowing scene. When a caregiver speaks and smiles, the infant learns that sound and expression belong together. When a rattle is shaken, the child connects motion with noise. These small integrations are foundational for later skills, language comprehension, social understanding, and coordinated movement. And in a restful sense, it's comforting to know the mind is always weaving, always gently stitching the world into coherence. Fact 17. Prenatal taste preferences. Even taste begins before birth. Research in gustatory development suggests flavors from a mother's diet can pass into amniotic fluid, giving the fetus early exposure to certain tastes. Later, those flavors may feel more familiar, subtly shaping early food preferences. This is not destiny, simply a gentle nudge of familiarity, one more example of how learning begins earlier than we often imagine. The developing brain is constantly sampling patterns. What repeats, what feels known, what seems safe. Food is never only nutrition. It is sensory memory, culture, and comfort. Over time, children expand their palate through repeated exposure, modeling, and their own curiosity. Yet this early taste learning reminds us that the body is already participating in experience, quietly collecting information, building preference through repetition, long before conscious recall is possible. Fact 18. Habituation. One of the simplest ways researchers study infant learning is through habituation. When a baby is shown the same stimulus repeatedly, such as a shape, a sound, or a light, they often look less over time. This decreased attention suggests the brain is recognizing the pattern, quietly concluding, "I know this now." Then, when something new appears, attention returns, an early sign of memory and discrimination. Habituation is soothing to think about because it reveals a calm efficiency in the infant mind. The baby isn't overwhelmed by everything forever. The brain filters, adapts, and saves energy. This is the earliest form of information processing, a kind of gentle sorting, and it also hints at curiosity. Novelty wakes attention, not as stress but as interest. The mind is designed to learn softly, steadily, by noticing change. Fact 19. Proprioception growth. Proprioception is sometimes called the hidden sense, the ability to feel where your body is in space without looking. In early childhood, this sense is still forming and it grows through movement, kicking, rolling, crawling, walking, climbing. Developmental science suggests the brain builds motor maps by linking muscle feedback with balance and touch. At first, movements can look uncoordinated, but underneath, the nervous system is calibrating. Each wobble is information. Each fall, when safe and gently supported, is part of learning. Proprioception helps children gain confidence in their bodies, and later supports handwriting, sports, and even sitting still with comfort. When a child spins, jumps, or stomps, it can be the brain's way of refining its internal GPS. The body becomes familiar territory, one sensation at a time. Fact 20. Color perception evolution. In the earliest months, Many infants are drawn to high-contrast patterns, black and white shapes, bold edges, clear boundaries. Research on retinal development suggests this is partly because the visual system, including cones and rods, is still maturing. Color perception develops gradually, and the infant brain first finds comfort in what is easiest to detect: contrast, movement, and simple forms. This isn't limitation in a sad sense, it's a natural sequence. The brain begins with strong signals, then refines into subtlety. Over time, the child's world becomes richer in color and detail, like a photograph slowly coming into focus. And perhaps that's a gentle metaphor for development itself. First the basics, then nuance. First outlines, then depth. The mind learns to see more, not by rushing, but by ripening. Chapter 3. The Cognitive Spark, Logic and Mental Construction. Fact 21. Object Permanence. At first, a baby's world can feel like it appears and disappears. If a toy is hidden, it may be as though it no longer exists. Over time, children develop object permanence, the understanding that things continue to exist even when out of sight. Jean Piaget described this as a key milestone of the sensory-motor stage. It might show up in a simple game of peekaboo, transforming from surprise into anticipation. This change matters because it signals the mind is building an inner model of reality. The child is no longer relying only on what is present in the senses. They are holding an idea in the mind. And that is the beginning of thinking as we recognize it, carrying the invisible, remembering the unseen, and trusting continuity. In a calm way, object permanence is the first quiet promise that the world is stable. Fact 22. Schema formation. As children gather experiences, they begin to organize them into schemas, mental folders that help categorize the world. A schema might be dog, bedtime, or how meals work. When something new happens, the child tries to fit it into an existing folder, which Piaget called assimilation. If it doesn't fit, the folder must change, which he called accommodation. This is cognitive growth, not just adding facts, but reshaping understanding. In daily life, it can look like a toddler calling every four-legged animal a dog, then slowly refining the categories. The soothing part is that mistakes here are not failures. They are the brain experimenting with organization. Each correction is the mind gently adjusting its map. Development is not a straight line of right answers. It's a slow, intelligent sorting process that becomes more accurate with time. Fact 23. Conservation of mass. One of the classic shifts in childhood thinking is conservation, the realization that quantity stays the same even when appearance changes. For example, water poured into a taller glass may look like more, even if it's the same amount. Piaget described how children in the pre-operational stage often rely on what is visually obvious, while children in the concrete operational stage begin to reason more logically about underlying sameness. This development isn't about becoming smarter suddenly. It's about the brain learning to hold multiple dimensions in mind at once: height and width, shape and volume. It takes time for working memory and attention to coordinate this kind of reasoning. And in a gentle way, conservation reminds us, children aren't being difficult when they insist it's more. They are describing the world as it truly appears to their developing mind. Fact 24. Scaffolding. Children often learn best when an adult offers help that is temporary, support that lifts them just above what they could do alone. This is known as scaffolding, a concept associated with Lev Vygotsky and the zone of proximal development. The idea is quiet and compassionate. Learning happens in the space between independence and guidance. A caregiver might demonstrate the first step, offer a hint, or break a task into smaller parts, then gradually step back as the child gains competence. This approach respects both challenge and safety. It prevents overwhelm while still inviting growth. In everyday life, scaffolding is a hand lightly on a bicycle seat, a shared puzzle, a patient let's try together. Over time, the child internalizes the structure and can do the task alone. And the nervous system learns something deeper too. Effort can be supported and confusion can be tolerated. Fact 25. Egocentrism in toddlers. In early childhood, egocentrism is common, not selfishness, but a developmental limitation in perspective taking. Piaget illustrated this with tasks like the Three Mountains experiment, where children struggled to imagine what someone else could see from a different viewpoint. The toddler's mind is not yet built to hold two perspectives at once with ease. This is important for caregivers to remember because it reframes many everyday moments. The child isn't refusing to understand. They are still growing the mental tools needed to understand. Over time, as theory of mind begins to emerge, children become more capable of imagining other viewpoints, feelings, and beliefs. But in the early stages, the world is centered on the self because that is where perception begins. And in a restful, human way, this is simply how the mind learns, first from the inside, then outward. Fact 26. Cause and effect reasoning. Young children often move through a phase where the world feels magical, where thoughts can cause events, or unrelated things seem connected. Gradually, through experience and brain maturation, cause and effect reasoning strengthens. The child begins to notice reliable sequences. Push the button and the toy lights up, cry and someone comes near, spill the cup and the floor becomes wet. These repeated patterns teach logic without needing formal instruction. Over time, magical thinking softens as the child builds more accurate models of how the world works. This is not the loss of imagination, it's the addition of structure. The brain is learning predictability, and predictability is calming. When children can anticipate outcomes, they feel more secure. So each small discovery, each, "oh, that's what happens," is also a quiet form of emotional regulation. Understanding reduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is often what makes the body tense. Fact 27. Working memory expansion. Working memory is the mind's small workspace, the ability to hold information briefly and manipulate it. Developmental research suggests working memory capacity increases with age, supported by maturing executive functions. A young child may forget the second step of a two-step instruction, not out of defiance, but because the mental workspace is still limited. As working memory grows, children can follow longer directions, solve multi-step problems, and keep rules in mind during games. This expansion often feels like a gentle widening of attention, more room to think, more room to plan. It also supports emotional control, because pausing before reacting requires holding the situation in mind rather than being swept away by it. In a soothing sense, working memory growth is like learning to carry a little lantern through the mind, enough light to see the next step, and then the next, without rushing. Fact 28. Metacognition. At a certain point, children begin to notice their own thinking. This is metacognition, thinking about thinking. They start to recognize what they understand, what confuses them, and what strategies help them learn. A child might say, "I remember better when I draw it," or "I need to read that again." This shift is subtle but powerful. The learner becomes an observer of the mind, not just a passenger inside it. Educational psychology suggests metacognition supports self-regulated learning, planning, and persistence. It can also soften anxiety, because numbing confusion makes it less threatening, turning fog into something describable. Over time, metacognition helps children take ownership of growth without harsh self-judgment. And in the calm spirit of tonight's journey, it's worth remembering. Self-awareness is not meant to be critical. At its best, it is curious, gentle, and kind, an inner guide that helps the mind find its way. Fact 29. Symbolic thought. Symbolic thought is one of childhood's quiet miracles, the ability to let one thing stand for another. A stick becomes a sword, a blanket becomes a cape, a cardboard box becomes a spaceship. Piaget described this as part of the semiotic function, and it marks a major leap in mental representation. The child is no longer limited to what is literally present. They can imagine, pretend, and rehearse possibilities. Symbolic thought supports language too, because words are symbols, sounds that represent ideas. In play, children practice living in two layers at once, the real and the imagined. This builds flexibility, creativity, and emotional processing. A child may act out fears and victories in pretend form, shaping feelings into stories the mind can hold. And for sleep listeners, symbolic thought offers a comforting reminder. Imagination is an escape. It's a natural tool the brain uses to explore, understand, and soothe itself. Fact 30. Categorization skills. As cognition matures, children become more skilled at categorization, grouping objects and ideas by deeper rules. Early on, a child might sort blocks by color because color is obvious and immediate. Later, children begin sorting by function or concept, things you eat with. Animals that live in water objects that role. This reflects conceptual development, the mind moving from surface features to underlying meaning. Researchers see this shift as part of growing logical organization, supported by language, memory, and experience. Categorization helps children predict the world. If you know what category something belongs to, you can guess what it might do. That prediction reduces uncertainty and supports confidence. In everyday life, categorization is why children love naming things, labeling, collecting, and arranging. They are building a world that makes sense, and sense-making is deeply calming for the nervous system. The mind relaxes when patterns become clear. Chapter 4. The Language Journey from Cooing to Conversations. Fact 31. The Universal Listener. In early infancy, the brain is remarkably open to sound patterns. Research in phonology suggests babies can initially distinguish many phonemes, speech sounds, from languages all over the world. Then, around the end of the first year, perception begins to narrow toward the sounds used in the child's environment, a process sometimes called linguistic narrowing. This is not loss, it is tuning. The brain is specializing in what it hears most. It's as though the auditory system says, "This is the language of my home, I will become efficient here." This helps explain why early exposure matters and also why infants are such powerful learners. They are not trying to memorize rules, they are absorbing rhythm, contrast, and repetition. In a soothing sense, language begins as music, pattern and melody before meaning. And slowly, gently, that music becomes understanding. Fact 32. Telegraphic speech. As toddlers begin combining words, many pass through a stage called telegraphic speech short, essential phrases like "more juice," "go park," or "mama help." The grammar is incomplete, but the meaning is clear. Developmental linguistics describes this as an efficient phase. The child's mind is prioritizing key content words while syntax develops in the background. It's almost like sending a message with only the most necessary signals. Caregivers often naturally fill in the full sentence, "You want more juice," providing gentle modeling without pressure. Over time, children add function words, tense markers, and more complex structure. Telegraphic speech also shows something comforting. Children aren't waiting to speak until they can speak perfectly. They speak as they grow, using what they have, trusting communication to be collaborative. And in a calm home environment, that collaboration becomes a safe path for language to expand. Fact 33. Fast mapping. Children have a fascinating ability called fast mapping, learning a new word after only one or a few exposures. A toddler might hear "thermometer" once and later point to it correctly. Researchers describe this as part of the vocabulary spurt, when word learning accelerates. Fast mapping works partly because children are natural pattern seekers. They notice what is new, what adults emphasize, and what objects appear repeatedly in meaningful contexts. It also relies on memory systems that are strengthening with age. Yet fast mapping doesn't always mean perfect understanding. Often the child has a rough sketch of meaning that becomes more detailed through repetition. That's a gentle lesson for all learning. First we catch the outline, then we fill in color. When caregivers name the world with warmth without demanding performance, the child's brain treats language as something inviting. Words become handles for reality, making the world easier to hold. Fact 34. Joint attention. One of the most important bridges between language and relationship is joint attention, the shared focus between a child and caregiver on the same object or event. A caregiver points, looks, or names something, and the child follows the gaze. Research suggests joint attention supports word learning because it answers a critical question. What does this word refer to? When adults say, "Look, a dog," the child learns not only the word but the social rule of shared meaning. Joint attention is also emotional. It's a moment of connection, like two minds gently meeting on the same point in space. Over time, these moments build communication skills beyond vocabulary, turn-taking, curiosity, shared discovery. And in a soothing way, joint attention reminds us that learning is rarely solitary in early life. Development happens inside relationships, through small shared moments that feel simple but are actually shaping the brain's social architecture. Fact 35. The language acquisition device. The question of how children learn language so quickly has inspired many theories. Noam Chomsky proposed the idea of an innate language faculty, sometimes described as a language acquisition device or universal grammar. The concept suggests humans may be born with a blueprint that makes language learning possible, allowing children to pick up complex structures with limited instruction. Not everyone interprets this theory the same way today, but it remains influential because it highlights something real. Language development is remarkably robust across cultures. Children do not need perfect teaching to begin constructing grammar. They are active builders, extracting patterns from what they hear. In a calm documentary sense, it's helpful to hold both sides gently. Biology provides readiness, and environment provides the specific language and rhythm. The mind is prepared to learn, and the world supplies what to learn. Together, they form speech, slowly turning sounds into meaning. Fact 36. Pragmatics of speech. Beyond vocabulary and grammar, children learn pragmatics, the social rules of language. This includes turn-taking, adjusting tone, using politeness, and recognizing when someone is joking or serious. Pragmatics develops through everyday interaction. Family conversations, storytelling, play with peers, gentle correction, and observation. A child learns not just how to form sentences, but how to use language to connect. Psychological studies of social communication suggest children pay attention to facial expressions, timing, and context to understand what words are doing, not just what they mean. Over time, pragmatics supports friendship and conflict resolution because it teaches what is appropriate in different situations. And for bedtime listening, pragmatics offers a quiet reminder that language is not only information, it is relationship. When children learn to say, "Can I have a turn?" instead of grabbing, they are learning that words can be a soft tool, one that replaces force with connection. Fact 37. Overregularization. A charming sign of language logic is overregularization, when children apply grammatical rules too broadly, saying "goed" instead of "went" or "mouses" instead of "mice." Rather than being a mistake to worry about, developmental linguistics views this as evidence the child is learning the rule system beneath language. The brain is not memorizing isolated phrases. It is building a model. And when models grow, they often overreach before they refine. Overregularization tends to fade as children encounter exceptions repeatedly and store them in memory. This process is soothing because it reveals a mind that is actively organizing, not passively repeating. The child is, in a sense, doing science, forming a hypothesis, add "ed" for past tense, and testing it everywhere. Later, they learn the irregular forms. Growth looks messy from the outside, but inside it is structured experimentation, guided by repetition and gentle feedback. Fact 38. Inner speech. As language develops, it begins to move inward. Vygotsky described how children often talk aloud to guide themselves. "Now I put it here." And over time, this external speech becomes inner speech. Inner speech supports self-regulation, planning, calming, problem-solving, and resisting impulses. When a child whispers to themselves while building a tower, they are using language as a tool to steer attention. Eventually, the whisper may vanish, but the guiding voice remains inside. This is one reason caregivers' language matters, not as perfection, but as tone. Supportive, patient speech can be internalized as a supportive inner guide. Harsh or shamming language can also echo, which is why gentleness is so powerful. Inner speech becomes the mind's companion. And in the quiet of night, you may notice your own inner speech, how it narrates, reassures, questions. This capacity began long ago, as children learned to use words not only to speak to others, but to steady themselves. Fact 39. Narrative development. Children gradually learn to tell stories, not just listing events, but sequencing them with a beginning, middle, and end. Narrative development draws on episodic memory, language structure, and the ability to understand cause and emotion. A child might first say, "Park, swing, ice cream." Then later expand into, "We went to the park, I fell, and Dad helped me, and then I felt better." Researchers note that storytelling supports identity because it helps children organize experiences into meaning. Narratives also help with emotional processing. When feelings are placed into a story, they become more manageable, less like raw sensation. Caregivers support this by listening, asking gentle questions, and modeling structure. What happened next? Over time, narrative skill becomes a quiet life tool. It helps children explain themselves, connect with others, and remember that hard moments can have endings. In a soothing sense, stories are how the mind turns time into something understandable. Fact 40. Bilingualism and flexibility. Learning more than one language can shape cognition in gentle, interesting ways. Research on bilingualism often finds advantages in certain executive functions, such as task switching, selective attention, and cognitive flexibility, skills involved in managing competing information. A bilingual child regularly practices choosing which language to use in which context, and this can strengthen mental control systems. Importantly, bilingual development can look different from monolingual development. Vocabulary might be distributed across languages, and code switching is normal, not confusion. Code switching can actually reflect social awareness, knowing what fits the moment. Beyond cognition, bilingualism can support cultural connection and identity, giving children more than one way to express emotion and belonging. And in the calm spirit of growth, bilingualism reminds us the brain is adaptable. It doesn't simply store one set of sounds and meanings. It can build multiple maps and travel between them with increasing grace. Chapter 5. Emotional landscapes, regulation, and empathy. Fact 41. Emotional contagion. In the earliest days, emotions can move through a room like a soft current. Developmental studies describe emotional contagion in newborns. One baby cries, and another baby begins to cry too. It isn't manipulation, and it isn't imitation in an adult sense. It's more like the infant nervous system resonates with the sound and intensity of distress. Researchers sometimes call this a primitive form of empathy or affective mirroring, because the baby is registering another's emotional signal before they have language or clear self-other boundaries. Over time, children learn differentiation. That is your feeling and this is mine. But early on, emotions are shared air, and this helps explain why calm caregiving matters, because a regulated adult body can become a stabilizing presence, gently teaching the infant what steadiness feels like. Fact 42. Social referencing. As infants grow, they begin to use a caregiver's face like a guidebook. This is known as social referencing. In a new situation, an unfamiliar person, a strange object, a sudden noise, the child looks toward a trusted adult to read emotion. Psychological research suggests the infant is not only asking, "What is this?" but also, "How should I feel about this?" A relaxed smile can communicate safety. A tense expression can communicate caution. This is one reason caregivers often notice a child becoming braver when they feel supported. Social referencing is a bridge between attachment and exploration. It's also a quiet example of how emotions become meaningful through relationship. The child learns that feelings carry information, and that shared understanding can reduce fear. Over time, this becomes an inner skill. Children begin referencing their own memory and judgment, but the earliest compass is another human face. Fact 43. Delay of gratification. There comes a time when a child begins to practice waiting, even when they want something immediately. Research on self-control, famously explored through variations of the marshmallow test, describes delay of gratification as a developing capacity, not a fixed trait. The ability to pause is linked to maturing executive functions and the gradual development of the prefrontal cortex, but it's also shaped by experience. If a child learns the world is reliable, waiting feels safer. Strategies matter too: distraction, self-talk, focusing on something else. In a soothing way, delay of gratification isn't about denying needs. It's about learning that time can be tolerated. The child's body learns little by little that wanting is not an emergency. And that lesson, wanting without panic, is a quiet form of emotional freedom. Fact 44. Temperament stability. From very early on, children show different temperaments. Some are easy to soothe, some react intensely, some warm up slowly to new situations. Researchers such as Chess and Thomas describe these patterns as relatively stable foundations of personality, though always shaped by environment. Temperament is not good or bad. It's a baseline sensitivity of the nervous system. How strongly a child responds, how quickly they settle, how much stimulation feels comfortable. What matters deeply is goodness of fit, the match between a child's temperament and the caregiving style around them. A highly sensitive child may thrive with predictable routines and gentle transitions, while a bold child may need safe outlets for exploration. Over time, temperament interacts with learning and culture, becoming more complex. But the early truth remains comforting. Children aren't choosing their reactivity. They're expressing how their system is wired, and they grow best when they're understood. Fact 45. The still face experiment. One of the most striking demonstrations of infant social needs is the still face experiment, associated with Edward Tronick. In this research, a caregiver interacts normally, then briefly holds a neutral, unresponsive face. Many infants quickly become distressed, trying to re-engage, then showing signs of agitation. The gentle lesson isn't meant to blame caregivers. It's meant to reveal biology. Infants are built for reciprocity. Their nervous systems expect emotional feedback the way lungs expect air. When responsiveness disappears, even briefly, the infant's stress rises because the social bridge is interrupted. In everyday life, of course, caregivers can't be perfectly responsive, and repair matters more than perfection. When connection returns, through gaze, voice, and warmth, the infant learns an equally important lesson. Disconnection can be followed by reconnection. That rhythm of rupture and repair becomes a foundation for resilience. Fact 46. Empathy emergence. As children move beyond infancy, empathy begins to shift from reflexive resonance to intentional care. At certain points, a child may try to comfort someone who is upset, offering a toy, patting a shoulder, or looking concerned. Researchers connect this emergence to developing perspective-taking, emotional recognition, and possibly mirror neuron systems that help the brain model others' states. Early empathy is imperfect. A child might offer what comforts them, not what comforts the other person. But that is still empathy beginning, and emotional reach outward. Caregivers can nurture this by numbing emotions gently. He's sad, he wanted that. Over time, empathy becomes more precise and flexible, shaped by culture and modeling. And in a quiet, hopeful way, this development shows something steady about humans. Even small children often lean toward connection, not cruelty, especially when they feel safe enough to notice someone else. Fact 47. Separation anxiety. Separation anxiety often appears in late infancy and toddlerhood, and it can feel intense, clinging, crying, searching. Developmentally, it's frequently a sign of healthy attachment rather than a problem. The child has formed a bond strong enough to register absence. Researchers link this to growing memory, object constancy, and emotional security. The child can remember the caregiver, predict separation, and protest it. In a calm way, separation anxiety shows the mind learning about permanence. The child is realizing, you can go away, while still learning, you come back. Supportive routines, goodbye rituals, predictable returns, calm reassurance can help the nervous system integrate this lesson. With time, the child develops trust in the rhythm of reunion, and even later in life, echoes of this process remain. We all feel safer when connection is reliable. The earliest goodbye practices are training the heart to tolerate distance without losing love. Fact 48. Emotional labeling. When children learn to name feelings, something subtle changes in the brain. Psychological research on affect labeling suggests that putting emotions into words can reduce their intensity, helping the nervous system shift from raw experience into organized meaning. A child saying mad or scared is not merely reporting, they are processing. Language recruits brain networks involved in attention and regulation, and it can soften the alarm response. This is why caregivers who reflect feelings, "you're frustrated," often see a child settle more quickly. It doesn't erase the emotion, it makes the emotion holdable. Over time, emotional vocabulary becomes a toolkit. The more precise the label, the more precise the self-understanding. Nervous feels different from angry. Disappointed feels different from hurt. And in the quiet of bedtime, even adults can feel this. Numbing what we feel often reduces its grip, as if the mind exhales once it's understood. Fact 49. Co-regulation. Before children can regulate themselves consistently, they borrow regulation from someone else. This is co-regulation, a calm adult helping a child's nervous system return to balance through voice, touch, presence, and packing. Developmental psychology emphasizes that self-regulation is built, not demanded, constructed through repeated experiences of being soothed. A caregiver who stays steady during a child's storm becomes a kind of external nervous system, lending calm until the child can generate it internally. Co-regulation can look simple: kneeling down, slowing speech, breathing together, offering predictable boundaries. It is not permissiveness, it is guidance without threat. Over time, the child internalizes these patterns. The adult's steady tone becomes the child's inner tone. And gradually, what was once external becomes self-generated. The child learns, I can come back to calm. Not perfectly, not instantly, but more and more reliably as the brain matures and trust accumulates. Fact 50. Secondary emotions. As children grow, emotions become more layered. Beyond basic feelings like joy, anger, and fear, children begin developing secondary, self-conscious emotions: pride, shame, guilt, and embarrassment. Researchers describe these as requiring self-awareness and social understanding. The child must imagine how they appear to others and compare behavior to internal or cultural standards. Pride can emerge when a child recognizes, I did that, and feels seen. Guilt can appear when they understand impact. I hurt someone and want to repair. Shame is more global and can feel like something is wrong with me, which is why supportive adults try to separate behavior from identity. These emotions aren't bad. They are social tools that help us belong. The gentle goal is guidance, helping children learn that mistakes can be repaired, feelings can be named, and worth is not lost in the learning. Chapter 6. The Power of Play, Learning Through Imagination. Fact 51. Parallel play. In early childhood, you might see two children playing side by side, each absorbed in their own activity, not truly cooperating. This is parallel play. Developmental researchers describe it as a normal stage that often appears before fully interactive play. The children are not ignoring each other. They are practicing being near someone, sharing space, sensing another's rhythm without the heavy demands of negotiation. Parallel play is like social training wheels. The child's nervous system learns, I can stay focused even when someone else is close. It also introduces early lessons in boundaries, patience, and observation. Over time, parallel play often blooms into more shared play as language, impulse control, and perspective-taking strengthen. In a soothing sense, this stage reminds us, social skill does not arrive all at once. It arrives quietly, through repeated safe exposures, like sunlight slowly warming a room. Fact 52. Sociodramatic play. As imagination expands, children begin sociodramatic play, role-playing that can be surprisingly complex. One child becomes the doctor, another the parent, another the baby. Scenes unfold with rules, emotions, and story arcs. Psychological theories of symbolic play suggest this is more than entertainment. It's social rehearsal. In pretend roles, children practice empathy by trying on perspectives. What would a teacher say? How would a firefighter help? They also practice problem solving, conflict resolution, and language flexibility. Sociodramatic play can even help children process feelings safely, turning fears into scripts they control. A child who felt powerless during a real event might become the rescuer in play. In this way, play becomes a gentle laboratory for the mind. It offers structure without stakes, emotion without danger, and connection without pressure. And while adults may see only costumes and toys, the developing brain is practicing how to be human. Fact 53. Rough and tumble play. Some play is energetic, wrestling, chasing, tumbling, often called rough and tumble play. When it's safe and mutually enjoyed, research suggests it can teach important lessons in boundaries and emotional calibration. Children learn to read facial cues. Is this fun or too much? They practice stopping, starting, and adjusting force. In a way, it's a moving conversation. This kind of play can support self-control because excitement rises, and the child must still follow an unspoken rule. Keep it playful, not harmful. Adults sometimes worry when they see this play, but context matters. Consent, smiles, role switching, and quick repair are key signals of healthy interaction. Rough and tumble play can also build resilience by helping children tolerate arousal states without panic. The body learns, high energy can still be safe. And that is a valuable nervous system lesson, especially for children who feel big feelings in small bodies. Fact 54. The play drive. Across many mammal species, play appears again and again, suggesting it's not a luxury but a biological drive. Ethology and evolutionary psychology often describe play as a kind of natural education, an instinctive way to practice survival skills and social coordination. Young animals play fight, chase, hide, and explore, building physical competence and learning social rules without lethal consequences. Human children do something similar, but with added layers of culture and imagination. The play drive is the brain saying, practice here where it's safe. In play, children experiment with risk in controlled ways, climbing a little higher, running a little faster, while also learning limits. And emotionally, play can be a release valve. Tension transforms into movement, uncertainty becomes story, fear becomes pretend. In a restful sense, play is the nervous system's way of learning life with softness around the edges. Fact 55. Constructive play. Constructive play, building with blocks, arranging materials, making shapes, quietly develops the mind's sense of space and structure. Research in child development links this kind of play to fine motor skills, planning, and early engineering logic. A child stacking blocks is not only using hands, they are testing gravity, balance, symmetry, and cause and effect. When the tower falls, the child receives immediate feedback, and the brain updates its predictions. Constructive play also teaches patience and sequencing. First the base, then the height, then the details. Over time, these skills support later learning in mathematics, geometry, and problem solving. It's also emotionally nourishing. Creating something stable can give a child a sense of competence. I made that. And competence is calming. In the quiet rhythm of building and rebuilding, the brain practices persistence without needing words. Each small success becomes a gentle reinforcement. Effort can shape the world. Fact 56. Executive function training. Games with rules, simple board games, Simon says, pretend games with you be this and I'll be that, can strengthen executive functions. Researchers describe executive function as a set of skills including inhibitory control, working memory, and flexible attention. Following rules requires stopping impulses, waiting your turn, not grabbing, holding a plan in mind. Even playful freeze games ask the body to pause mid-motion, which is a surprisingly sophisticated brain task. What's soothing is that children often practice these difficult skills best when they don't feel judged. In play, mistakes are allowed. the game continues. The child learns through repetition rather than shame. Over time, rule-based play becomes a training ground for classroom readiness and emotional control, and it offers a gentle truth. Self-discipline grows more easily when it's wrapped in enjoyment. The brain learns fastest when it feels safe enough to try again. Fact 57. Cognitive flexibility in play. Many children naturally change rules mid-game. Suddenly the floor is lava, then it's an ocean, then it's outer space. While it can be chaotic for adults, this can reflect cognitive flexibility, the ability to shift mental sets and adapt to new conditions. In psychology, set shifting is an executive function skill that supports problem-solving and creativity. When a child can switch roles, now I'm the chef, now I'm the customer, they practice holding multiple perspectives and adjusting behavior accordingly. These playful shifts also teach resilience. When a plan changes, the world doesn't end. It simply becomes a new game. Over time, cognitive flexibility helps children cope with transitions, unexpected events, and complex learning. It's the opposite of rigid panic. And in a calm way, flexibility is a form of inner spaciousness, the mind's ability to loosen its grip and move with life, rather than fighting every change. Fact 58. Flow state in children. Sometimes a child becomes so absorbed in play that the world seems to fall away. This deep immersion resembles what positive psychology calls a flow state, an optimal experience where attention is fully engaged and the activity feels intrinsically rewarding. In flow, children often lose track of time, not because they're avoiding reality, but because their mind is perfectly matched to a meaningful challenge. The task is neither too easy nor too hard. Researchers suggest flow supports learning because focus becomes effortless and feedback is immediate. You can see it in a child drawing carefully, building a detailed world, or repeating a skill with concentration. Flow is also regulating. It organizes attention and reduces scattered anxiety. In that quiet concentration, the nervous system settles into one channel. And for nighttime listening, it's comforting to remember we all seek flow, moments where the mind rests by focusing, where peace arrives not through emptiness, but through gentle absorption. Fact 59. Divergent thinking. A child might pick up a spoon and decide it's a microphone, a wand, a spaceship, or a tiny shovel. This is divergent thinking, the ability to generate multiple uses and ideas from a single object or situation. Creativity researchers often view divergent thinking as an important part of problem solving because it trains the mind to explore possibilities rather than locking into one rigid interpretation. In early childhood, divergent thinking is especially visible because imagination is readily available and social rules are still forming. It's the brain practicing breadth. This doesn't mean every child must be creative in the same way. It means the mind has a natural capacity to reframe reality, and reframing can be emotionally powerful. When children can imagine alternative outcomes, they can cope more flexibly with disappointment and fear. In a soothing sense, divergent thinking is mental breathing room, the ability to look at life and say, there might be another way. Fact 60. Mastery play. Children often repeat the same action again and again, jumping off the same step, drawing the same shape, practicing the same phrase. This is mastery play, and it's a quiet engine of competence. Developmental psychology links repetition to building self-efficacy, the belief, I can do this. The brain strengthens motor pathways through practice, refining timing and coordination. What looks monotonous to an adult can feel deeply satisfying to a child because each repetition contains subtle improvement. Mastery play also helps regulate emotion. Predictable repetition can be soothing, especially when the world feels big and uncertain. The child controls the outcome: jump, land, laugh, repeat. Over time, this builds perseverance without forcing it. The child learns that frustration can be survived, that failure can be followed by another try. And that lesson, patient practice, becomes a foundation not only for skills, but for confidence in life. Chapter 7. social connections, peers, and group dynamics. Fact 61. Theory of mind 2M. At a certain stage, children begin to understand something profound. Other people have minds too, thoughts, beliefs, and feelings that can differ from their own. This is called theory of mind. Researchers often study it using false belief tasks, where a child must predict what someone else will think, even when the child knows the truth. When theory of mind strengthens, social life changes. Jokes make more sense. Comfort becomes more targeted. Misunderstandings can be repaired more easily. This ability doesn't appear overnight. It builds through conversation, pretend play, and observing others. It's also supported by brain maturation and language growth. In a calm way, theory of mind is the mind opening outward, learning that reality is not a single viewpoint but many. And with that understanding, empathy becomes more accurate. The child can begin to imagine, if I were you, I might feel this. It's one of the quiet beginnings of compassion. Fact 62. Prosocial altruism. Even very young children sometimes help spontaneously, picking up something an adult dropped, trying to open a door for someone, offering an object without being asked. Research on prosocial behavior suggests toddlers can show early forms of altruism, not only because they want praise, but because helping is part of human social wiring. Cooperation has deep evolutionary roots. Communities survive when individuals respond to one another. Of course, children also have selfish moments. Both are normal. But these early helping behaviors show something steady. Connection often feels rewarding. When caregivers acknowledge kindness gently, without turning it into performance, children learn that helping is a natural part of belonging. Over time, prosocial behavior becomes more nuanced, guided by empathy and fairness. And in a soothing bedtime frame, it's comforting to remember. The capacity to care doesn't start as a moral lecture. It often starts as a simple impulse. I see you need something, and the small body moves to assist. Fact 63. Peer acceptance. In early childhood, friendship can look like pure availability. You're here, so you're my friend. As children grow, peer relationships become more selective. Developmental psychology describes shifts toward valuing specific qualities, shared interests, trust, humor, loyalty. Researchers sometimes study this through sociometric status, who is liked, who is sought out, who is excluded, while also distinguishing popularity from genuine friendship. Peer acceptance begins to matter more in middle childhood because it reflects belonging beyond family. This can be tender territory, not because children are fragile, but because humans are social by design. Acceptance helps regulate stress. Rejection can activate threat responses. Supportive adults can help by teaching social skills, encouraging inclusive environments, and reminding children that being liked by everyone is not the goal. Over time, many children learn the deeper truth. 1 or 2 safe friendships can matter more than broad approval. And that lesson becomes a quiet protection for the developing self. Fact 64. Social learning theory. Children learn not only from what they are told, but from what they observe. Albert Bandura's social learning theory emphasizes modeling. Behaviors are picked up through watching others, especially when those behaviors seem rewarded or admired. This can be seen in everyday life. Children imitating phrases, gestures, coping strategies, even emotional reactions. In the famous Bobo doll research, children replicated aggressive actions they had observed, demonstrating how powerful modeling can be. But the soothing side of social learning is just as real. Children also imitate kindness, patience, and problem solving. When adults speak gently during conflict, children learn that gentleness is possible even under stress. When adults apologize and repair, children learn responsibility without shame. Social learning reminds us that teaching is happening all the time quietly, through tone and timing. The child is always studying the world for how people do things. And small daily choices become lessons that last longer than lectures. Fact 65. Internal working models. Attachment doesn't only shape early comfort, it can also shape expectations. Developmental psychology describes internal working models, mental templates a child forms about relationships, whether others are reliable, whether needs will be met, whether closeness is safe. These models aren't conscious scripts, they're emotional predictions built from repeated experiences. If care is generally consistent, the child may expect support and approach others with trust. If care is unpredictable, the child may become hypervigilant or withdrawn. Importantly, internal working models can change over time through new relationships and experiences, teachers, mentors, friends, supportive family members. They are flexible, not fate. In a gentle sense, these models are the brain's attempt to reduce uncertainty. What should I expect from people? And because humans are wired for connection, those expectations matter. When a child experiences reliable repair after mistakes, they learn a powerful relational truth. Closeness can survive imperfection. Fact 66. Conflict resolution skills. On playgrounds and in classrooms, conflict is inevitable because children are practicing social life in real time. Overdevelopment, many children move from physical reactions or rigid demands toward negotiation, compromise, and problem solving. These conflict resolution skills are part of social intelligence, understanding goals, reading emotions, using language to reach agreement. Research on peer mediation and social problem solving suggests children benefit from adult coaching that is calm and structured, helping them name the problem, consider options, and predict outcomes. The goal isn't to remove conflict, it's to teach repair. Learning to say, "I was using that," or "Can we take turns?" is a major developmental achievement. It requires impulse control, perspective taking, and trust that words can work. In a soothing way, conflict resolution is the child learning that relationships can bend without breaking. Disagreement doesn't have to mean danger. It can mean dialogue. Fact 67. In-group bias. Even young children can show a preference for their own group, whether the group is based on family, classroom, team, or even a minimal and arbitrary category. Social psychology calls this in-group bias, and research like the minimal group paradigm shows how easily humans form us and them. Developmentally, this may arise because categorizing helps the brain simplify a complex social world, but it can also lead to exclusion and unfairness if not guided. The gentle educational point is not to shame children, but to understand the mechanism. Belonging feels safe, and the mind protects what feels safe. Caregivers and educators can expand the circle by emphasizing shared humanity, modeling inclusion, and creating cooperative goals where children mix across groups. Over time, children can learn that identity doesn't require hostility. You can have an us that is wide. In a calm sense, reducing bias often starts with simple experiences of friendly contact, repeated enough that the nervous system stops treating difference as threat. Fact 68. Reciprocity in friendships. As children enter middle childhood, friendships often become more reciprocal. Instead of one child always leading and the other always following, there is more give and take, sharing secrets, taking turns, offering help, expecting fairness. Researchers describe this as part of developing equity and mutual exchange. Reciprocity requires several growing abilities: remembering what happened before, understanding feelings, tolerating disappointment, and negotiating needs. It also depends on trust that kindness will return. When children learn reciprocity, friendships become more stable and meaningful, but also more demanding because imbalance is noticed. A child might say, "I always share with you, but you don't share with me." This is social learning becoming explicit. Supportive adults can help children navigate these moments without bitterness, teaching boundaries and communication. In a soothing light, reciprocity is the child learning a mature truth. Relationships are built, not wished into existence. They grow through small exchanges that say again and again, "I see you and you see me." Fact 69. Relational aggression. Not all conflict is loud. As children's social awareness grows, some forms of aggression can become more indirect: exclusion, gossip, silent treatment, or using friendships as leverage. Psychology refers to this as relational aggression, and it often appears when social status begins to feel important. The child learns that hurting someone doesn't always require physical force. It can happen through the social fabric itself. Understanding this mechanism helps adults respond wisely, not by panic, but by teaching empathy, repair, and healthier ways to gain belonging. Children may use relational aggression to protect themselves from insecurity or to control uncertainty in groups. The soothing educational point is that these behaviors are learned and can be unlearned. When environments reward kindness and provide clear boundaries, children often shift toward more prosocial strategies. Over time, many children learn that real power in relationships is not fear, it's trust. And trust is built through consistency, fairness, and the courage to include. Fact 70. Cultural socialization. Every child grows inside a culture, and culture teaches quietly, through routines, stories, celebrations, rules, and everyday interactions. Vygotsky emphasized that learning is shaped by cultural tools, including language, symbols, and shared practices. Cultural socialization is how children absorb what is valued, how to greet others, how to show respect, what emotions are acceptable to express, what achievement means, what family roles look like. Children often learn these lessons without formal instruction, by observing what adults praise, what they correct, and what they repeat. This doesn't mean culture is rigid. It evolves, and families vary widely within it. But it does mean identity and behavior are always partly social. In a calm way, cultural socialization explains why development looks different across communities while still following universal human patterns. A child learns not only how to be a person, but how to be a person here, among these people, in this story. And that belonging can be deeply regulating. Chapter 8. The Developing Self, Identity, and Self-Esteem. Fact 71. The Rouge Test. One gentle way researchers study self-recognition is the Rouge Test. A small mark is placed on a child's face, and the child is shown a mirror. Around 18 months, many children touch their own face rather than the mirror, suggesting they recognize the reflection as me. This is not vanity. It's the beginning of a new mental organization, visual self-awareness. The child is forming an internal sense of self as an object in the world. This shift supports later abilities, embarrassment, pride, empathy, and identity language like mine and me. It also changes how children relate to others, because once you sense yourself as a distinct person, you can also sense that others are distinct too. In a soothing way, self-recognition is like a quiet dawn. The mind slowly turns a light inward and realizes, with simple wonder, I am here. Fact 72. Autonomy versus shame. Erik Erikson described early childhood as a time of tension between autonomy and shame or doubt. Children want to do things by the water, choose the shirt, climb the steps. This drive is not stubbornness, it's the self under construction. When caregivers allow safe autonomy, children build confidence and a sense of agency. When adults respond with harshness or ridicule, children may feel shame, learning that effort is dangerous. The most supportive path often looks like patient boundaries. You can try and I'll help if needed, or not like that, but here's a safe way. Autonomy grows best when it is guided, not crushed. Over time, the child learns, I can act on the world and my actions matter. In a calm bedtime frame, autonomy is the child's first lesson in dignity, the feeling of being a capable person, even while still small. Fact 73. Self-concept growth. Children's self-descriptions evolve in a fascinating way. Early on, self-concept often focuses on concrete features. I have brown hair, I'm tall, I can run fast. As development continues, children begin describing internal traits. I'm friendly, I get nervous, I try hard. This shift reflects cognitive maturation, greater ability to think abstractly about stable characteristics and patterns over time. It's also shaped by feedback from others. What caregivers and peers mirror back becomes part of the child's self-story. A child repeatedly told, "You're helpful," may begin to believe helpfulness is part of who they are. The soothing point is that self-concept is not fixed, it's a living narrative. It changes with experience, support, and new competencies, helping children build a balanced self-concept. One that includes strengths and room to grow can protect them from fragile identity. The healthiest self story often sounds like, "This is me, and I'm still becoming." Fact 74. Locus of control. As children mature, they develop beliefs about what causes outcomes. This is called locus of control, whether they tend to see results as driven by their own actions, internal locus, or by outside forces like luck or other people, external locus. Psychological research suggests children benefit from learning realistic agency, understanding what they can influence and what they can't. A child with a stronger internal locus might think, "If I practice, I can improve," which supports persistence. But an overly internal belief can become self-blame if a child assumes everything bad is their fault. The soothing, balanced lesson is discernment. Effort matters, but life is also complex. Caregivers can nurture healthy locus of control by praising strategies and process. "You kept trying," and by acknowledging external realities without helplessness. Over time, children learn to steer where they can and breathe where they can't. That combination, agency with acceptance, is a quiet form of wisdom. Fact 75. Gender constancy. Gender understanding develops over time. One concept from cognitive developmental approaches is gender constancy, the understanding that gender remains stable across changes in clothing, hairstyle, or activities. Children may initially think appearance changes gender because early thinking often focuses on visible cues. As cognitive skills mature, children begin to grasp deeper categories. Gender schema theory also suggests children build mental frameworks about what behaviors and roles are associated with gender in their culture, absorbing patterns they see around them. This learning can be flexible or rigid depending on the environment. The gentle educational emphasis is that children are sense makers. They watch, categorize, and try to predict social rules. Supportive adults can keep this process open by allowing a wide range of interests and expressions, and by avoiding shamming. Over time, many children learn that identity is both personal and social, something you feel inside, and also something shaped by messages around you. A calm environment helps children explore who they are without fear of losing belonging. Fact 76. Self-esteem stability. Self-esteem often follows a developmental rhythm. Research frequently finds that young children tend to report high self-esteem, partly because their self-evaluations are broad and optimistic, and because social comparison is still limited. As children grow, especially entering adolescence, self-esteem can dip as social comparison increases and ideals become more demanding. The child becomes more aware of gaps between who I am and who I want to be, and peer feedback can feel sharper. This doesn't mean something is wrong. It can be a normal part of increased self-awareness. Supportive adults can help by emphasizing belonging, competence building, and values beyond appearance or status. Praise that focuses on effort and character, rather than global labels, can support steadier self-worth. In a soothing sense, self-esteem is not meant to be constant happiness. It's meant to be a stable relationship with the self, a sense that you are worthy while you grow, even on days when you feel unsure. Fact 77. Moral realism. In early moral development, many children see rules as fixed and unchangeable, handed down by authorities and enforced by the world itself. Piaget described this as moral realism. A young child might believe that breaking a rule is bad, regardless of intention, and that punishment is a natural consequence rather than a decision made by people. Over time, children shift toward more flexible moral reasoning, considering motives, context, and fairness. This transition is supported by cognitive growth and social experience, negotiating rules in games, hearing explanations, watching adults model nuance. Moral realism can be comforting for children because it makes the world predictable. Clear rules reduce uncertainty. The gentle challenge is helping children learn that morality also includes empathy and intention, not just obedience. When adults explain reasons, "We don't hit because it hurts," children begin to link rules to human impact. And gradually, morality becomes less about fear of punishment and more about understanding and care. Fact 78. Personal fable. In adolescence, some teens develop what psychologists call the personal fable, the feeling that their experiences are uniquely intense and that no one understands. David Elkind connected this to adolescent egocentrism, where self-consciousness and self-focus are heightened. This doesn't mean teens are selfish. It often means their inner life is newly vivid and their social brain is highly attuned to evaluation. When feelings become big, they can feel singular, like no one else has ever felt this exact combination. The personal fable can sometimes protect teens by giving meaning to struggle, but it can also increase loneliness if they believe connection is impossible. Supportive adults can respond with respect rather than dismissal, offering gentle reminders that intense feelings are human and shared. In a soothing frame, the personal fable is the mind trying to dignify experience. The teen is writing a story about themselves, sometimes dramatic, sometimes painful, while still learning that other stories exist too, and they can be held together. Fact 79. Self-efficacy confidence. Self-efficacy, a concept closely associated with Albert Bandura, is the belief in one's ability to succeed at a specific task. It's not global self-esteem, it's situational confidence. I can learn this, I can handle that. Research suggests self-efficacy grows through mastery experiences, doing something challenging and improving, along with modeling, encouragement, and manageable goals. When children succeed after effort, their brain updates. Effort has value. This can create a positive loop where confidence fuels persistence and persistence fuels skill. Importantly, self-efficacy also grows when adults frame mistakes as information rather than identity. That didn't work yet, let's try a new strategy. Over time, self-efficacy becomes a protective factor against helplessness and avoidance. In a calm way, it is the feeling of having hands on the steering wheel of your own learning, not control over everything, but enough influence to keep going. Fact 80. Bodily autonomy. As children grow, they develop a sense of bodily autonomy, ownership over their body and boundaries. This includes understanding personal space, consent in age-appropriate ways, privacy, and the right to say no to unwanted touch. Developmental psychology views bodily autonomy as part of the physical self and identity formation. This is my body, and I can protect it. Caregivers support this through respectful routines, asking before touching when possible, teaching correct names for body parts, and modeling boundary-respecting behavior. These lessons are not about fear, they are about dignity. Children who feel their boundaries are respected often develop clearer boundaries with others, too. Bodily autonomy also intersects with emotional regulation. When children trust they have control over their physical space, their nervous system can relax. In a soothing bedtime sense, bodily autonomy is the child learning a quiet truth that lasts into adulthood. You are allowed to take up space, and you are allowed to have limits. Chapter 9. Learning and Resilience, Curiosity and Grit. Fact 81. Mastery motivation. Quietly, many children carry an inner engine that turns on when something is just barely possible. Developmental researchers call this mastery motivation, the drive to solve a puzzle, climb a step, fit a shape into the right hole, simply for the satisfaction of "I did it." You can see it in the way a child returns to the same challenge again and again, not because anyone demanded it, but because competence feels rewarding from the inside. Psychologists often connect this to intrinsic motivation and the basic human need to feel capable. When adults notice effort, without turning it into pressure, mastery motivation tends to grow. And when children are allowed to struggle safely, they learn a gentle truth. Frustration can be part of learning, not a signal to stop. Over time, this drive becomes a foundation for persistence, curiosity, and quiet confidence. Fact 82. Growth mindset. A closely related idea in educational psychology is the growth mindset, associated with Carol Dweck's research. It describes the belief that abilities, including intelligence, can be developed through practice, strategies, and support, rather than being fixed traits you either have or don't. For children, this belief can soften the fear of mistakes. If errors mean I'm still learning, then effort becomes safer. A growth mindset is not forced positivity, and it doesn't deny real limits or differences. It simply frames development as possible. In everyday life, adults can encourage this by praising process. You tried a new way. You kept going, instead of only praising outcomes. Over time, children who adopt this stance may be more willing to take on challenges because difficulty becomes information, not a verdict. And that gentle shift can protect the joy of learning. Fact 83. Cognitive load. When children feel overwhelmed by learning, it's often not laziness. It can be cognitive load. Cognitive load theory suggests working memory has limits, and too much new information at once can crowd the mental workspace, making it hard to process anything deeply. Children, whose working memory systems are still developing, are especially sensitive to overload. That's why they often learn better when information is broken into smaller steps, repeated calmly, and connected to what they already know. This isn't about lowering expectations, it's about matching the brain's current capacity. A soothing way to imagine it is like carrying water in a small cup. If you pour too fast, it spills. When teaching is paced, the child can hold more over time. And as skills become automatic, they take up less mental space, leaving room for new learning. Fact 84. Protective factors. Resilience research often emphasizes protective factors, conditions that help children adapt even when life is stressful. One of the most consistently supported protective factors is at least one stable, supportive relationship with a caring adult. This doesn't remove difficulty, and it isn't a promise of perfect outcomes, but studies suggest reliable connection can buffer stress responses by providing safety, meaning, and guidance. In trauma-informed frameworks, the phrase "safe enough," often enough matters. Repeated experiences of being seen and supported help the nervous system recover. Protective factors can also include predictable routines, supportive communities, and opportunities to build competence. The comforting message here is that resilience is not a rare personality trait. It's often relational. It grows when a child has someone who returns, someone who helps them name what's happening, regain calm, and remember they're not alone. Even small, steady bonds can be powerful. Fact 85. Attention span maturation. Attention is not only willpower, it's biology developing over time. Children's attention span tends to increase as brain systems that regulate alertness and focus mature, including networks connected to the reticular activating system in the brainstem. Younger children often shift focus quickly because novelty captures attention easily, and sustained concentration is still being built. With age, children become better at filtering distractions and staying with one task, especially when the task is meaningful and appropriately challenging. This is why some inattention is simply developmental timing. Adults can support attention growth by creating calm learning spaces, using clear routines, and offering breaks that reset the system rather than overstimulate it. In a gentle sense, attention is like a muscle that strengthens with practice and rest. The brain learns how to stay, how to return, and how to settle into one stream of thought without strain. Fact 86. Episodic memory development. Many adults notice a soft blank space when they try to remember early childhood. This is often called infantile amnesia, and researchers link it to the gradual maturation of the hippocampus and related memory systems. Early in life, children form memories, but these memories are often stored differently, more as sensations, emotional patterns, and fragments than as organized stories with dates and sequences. As language and narrative skills develop, children become better at forming autobiographical memories. This happened, then that happened, and I felt this. Caregivers can support this by talking with children about events in a calm, structured way, without interrogating, helping them stitch experience into narrative. The soothing takeaway is that not remembering early years doesn't mean nothing was learned. The body and brain were still recording patterns of safety, rhythm, and connection, just in a form that isn't easily retrieved as adult words. Fact 87. Learned helplessness. Sometimes children stop trying, not because they lack ability, but because they've learned effort doesn't change outcomes. Psychologist Martin Seligman's work on learned helplessness describes how repeated experiences of failure or lack of control can lead to passivity. Why try if it won't work? In children, this can appear as quick giving up, low confidence, or avoiding challenges. Importantly, this isn't a character flaw. It's a protective adaptation to predictability. The mind is conserving energy in a world that feels unwinnable. Educational psychology suggests a gentle antidote is restoring controllability in small doses, tasks that are achievable, feedback that is specific, and environments where effort reliably leads to some improvement. When children experience success after strategy and persistence, their belief system begins to shift. Over time, the nervous system relearns hope, not as fantasy, but as evidence-based expectation. Trying can matter. Fact 88. Transfer of learning. A sign of deep learning is transfer, the ability to take a skill from one context and use it in another. A child who learns planning in a board game and later applies it to a school assignment is showing transfer of learning. Researchers link this to generalization and analogical reasoning, noticing underlying structures that repeat across situations. Transfer doesn't always happen automatically. Children often need gentle help recognizing, this is like that. Adults can support transfer by asking calm questions. Remember how you solved the puzzle by trying corners first. What might be the corners of this problem? When transfer strengthens, learning becomes more efficient because the child isn't starting from zero each time. They're building a toolkit. And in a soothing sense, transfer is the mind discovering continuity, realizing that life has patterns, and that the strategies you practice in one safe place can travel with you into new spaces, quietly increasing confidence. Fact 89. Curiosity and the gap. Curiosity often arises from a gentle tension, the space between what a child knows and what they want to know. Information gap theory suggests that when people sense a gap in understanding, they feel motivated to close it. In children, this can look like endless why questions, intense interest in how things work, and sudden absorption in a topic. Curiosity is not just mental, it's emotional. It carries a mild arousal that feels like interest rather than threat. Supportive adults can protect curiosity by responding with warmth, offering explanations that fit the child's level, and sometimes exploring together instead of rushing to end the questions. When curiosity is nurtured, learning becomes self-propelled. Over time, the child learns. Not knowing is not shameful, it's an invitation. And that lesson matters deeply. A curious mind is often a resilient mind because it approaches uncertainty with exploration rather than fear. Fact 90. Stress recovery cycle. Not all stress is harmful. Developmental research often distinguishes between overwhelming stress and manageable stress, sometimes called eustress or hormetic stress, where challenges are difficult but supported. When children face small, tolerable stressors and then recover with help, the brain learns flexibility. Arousal rises, coping strategies engage, and calm returns. This stress recovery cycle can strengthen resilience because the nervous system practices returning to baseline. The key is support and scale. Stress that is too intense or too constant can be harmful, while moderate challenge within a safe relationship can be growth-promoting. In everyday life, this might look like trying a new skill, handling a minor disappointment, or practicing a difficult conversation, followed by reassurance and rest. In a soothing way, resilience is not the absence of stress. It's the learned confidence that stress can pass, and that recovery is real. Chapter 10. The Adolescent Horizon, Transitioning to Independence. Fact 91. Prefrontal cortex remodeling. In adolescence, the brain enters a period that can feel like a quiet renovation. Research in developmental neuroscience suggests the prefrontal cortex, important for planning, impulse control, and long-term thinking, continues maturing through the teen years and beyond. This doesn't mean teenagers can't think logically. It means the systems that help with consistent regulation are still under construction. Teens may show impressive reasoning in calm moments, yet struggle when emotions run high or social pressure is intense. This is a normal part of development, not a moral failure. With supportive boundaries, practice, and sleep, executive functions strengthen over time. A gentle way to picture it is like learning to drive on varied roads, sometimes smooth, sometimes crowded. The skill is there, but it's still becoming reliable under all conditions. And slowly the brain builds more stable control. One experience, one choice, one lesson at a time. Fact 92. Reward system sensitivity. During adolescence, many teens experience rewards more intensely, especially social rewards. Research suggests dopamine-related pathways, including the ventral striatum, can be particularly sensitive during this period, making excitement, novelty, and peer approval feel powerfully motivating. This helps explain why teens may take risks or prioritize friendships in ways adults find puzzling. It's not simply poor judgment. It's a reward system tuned to exploration and social learning. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. Independence requires leaving the familiar and seeking new information, new roles, new alliances. The soothing point is that teen risk-taking often decreases when environments provide safe ways to explore: sports, creativity, meaningful goals, supportive communities. When teens can find reward in competence and belonging, the brain learns healthier pathways for excitement. Over time, reward sensitivity becomes more balanced with mature planning systems, creating steadier decision-making. Fact 93. Circadian rhythm shift. Many teenagers naturally feel sleepy late or at night and struggle to wake early. Research on adolescent sleep suggests a biological circadian shift occurs, influenced by changes in melatonin secretion and sleep-wake timing. This is sometimes called a sleep phase delay. It doesn't mean teens are lazy. It reflects physiology interacting with modern schedules. Of course, habits and screens can also affect sleep, but the underlying shift is real for many. Understanding this can reduce conflict and shame, helping families and educators approach sleep as a developmental process rather than a character test. In a calm perspective, sleep is one of the teen brain's most important supports because learning, emotional regulation, and memory consolidation are tied to rest. Teens often appear emotionally intense partly because they are navigating a changing brain on changing sleep rhythms. Gentle routines, realistic expectations, and compassion can help this transition feel less like a battle and more like adjustment. Fact 94. Abstract reasoning. Adolescence often brings a new style of thinking, abstract reasoning. Teens begin exploring what-if scenarios, moral dilemmas, philosophical questions, and complex systems. Piaget described this as the formal operational stage, where hypothetical logic becomes more available. This is why teenagers may suddenly care deeply about fairness, identity, politics, or the meaning of life, sometimes with passionate intensity. Their minds are stretching beyond the concrete world of childhood into ideas that cannot be touched but can be felt. Abstract reasoning also supports long-term planning, because imagining the future requires thinking beyond the present moment. The soothing side is that this mental expansion can be guided gently through discussion, curiosity, and respectful debate, without needing constant correction. Teens aren't only becoming more argumentative, they're becoming more capable of thought experiments. They're learning to hold complexity, even if their emotional regulation sometimes lags behind the size of their ideas. Fact 95. Identity versus role confusion. Erickson described adolescence as a key period of identity versus role confusion, the developmental task of figuring out who you are and where you fit. Teens often explore different roles, values, aesthetics, and peer groups, not as indecision but as searching. This exploration can look unstable from the outside, yet it is often the mind doing necessary work. testing possibilities, comparing them to inner feelings and social feedback. Role confusion can arise when choices feel too pressured, too limited, or too judged, making exploration unsafe. Supportive adults help by allowing experimentation within reasonable boundaries and by valuing character and effort over image. Identity formation also happens through commitments, choosing interests, values, and communities that feel meaningful. In a soothing sense, identity is not a single discovery. It's a gradually written story. Adolescence is the chapter where the author begins holding the pen more directly, even while still learning the language of the self. Fact 96. Cognitive empathy peak. As teens mature, many develop stronger cognitive empathy, the ability to understand another person's perspective logically, even when they don't share it emotionally. This is sometimes described as an advanced form of theory of mind. Teens may become better at imagining complex motivations, social dynamics, and hidden feelings. They can understand irony, mixed emotions, and the idea that someone can feel two things at once. This growth is supported by brain maturation and expanding social experience. Cognitive empathy does not guarantee kindness, but it provides the mental tool for it. It also supports conflict resolution, because perspective-taking makes negotiation possible. The gentle point is that teens often appear self-focused while simultaneously becoming more capable of deep understanding. Their inner world is loud, yet their mind is learning to map other inner worlds too. With guidance and modeling, cognitive empathy can translate into compassion, an ability to hold both self and other with clarity. Fact 97. Social brain maturation. Adolescence is also a time when the social brain becomes highly active. Research points to increased sensitivity in regions involved in social evaluation, such as parts of the medial prefrontal cortex. This means peer opinions can feel amplified, like social feedback is turned up in volume. Teens may replay conversations, worry about status, or feel intense embarrassment more easily. This sensitivity isn't superficial. It reflects the brain prioritizing social learning, which is essential for adult life. The soothing reframe is that teen social focus is often developmentally logical. Learning group norms, navigating attraction and friendship, and finding belonging are real tasks. Supportive adults can help by validating the feeling without exaggerating the stakes, and by offering stable acceptance at home or in mentorship spaces. Over time, as identity stabilizes, peer evaluation tends to lose some power. The teen learns, I can be seen and still be safe. I can be judged and still be okay. Fact 98. Individuation. Individuation is the healthy process of becoming a separate person from one's parents or caregivers. Family systems theory often describes it as a shift. The teen begins relying more on internal values and peer relationships while still needing some family connection. Individuation can look like disagreement, privacy needs, or a desire to make independent choices. This can be hard for families, but developmentally it's often a sign of growth. The goal is not disconnection, it's differentiation. I am me and you are you, and we can still love each other. Supportive boundaries make individuation safer. Clear expectations, respectful negotiation, and space to practice responsibility. Teens who feel controlled may push harder. Teens who feel trusted may return more willingly. In a soothing sense, individuation is a gentle loosening, like a bird learning the edge of the nest. The relationship changes shape so the teen can carry family values forward, by choice, not by force. Fact 99. Synaptic pruning final wave. Later adolescence involves another meaningful refinement, a final wave of synaptic pruning. Just as in early childhood, the brain strengthens frequently used pathways and reduces those used less often, supporting efficiency and specialization. Neuroscience describes this as part of neural tuning, becoming more streamlined in attention, skills, and habitual thought patterns. This is one reason practice matters in adolescence. Repeated activities, music, sports, study habits, coping strategies can become more deeply wired. Importantly, pruning isn't about losing potential in a tragic way. It's about the brain committing to what is repeatedly chosen. And because life remains changeable, new learning is always possible, but habits do become easier with repetition. The soothing message is to hold adolescence as a window of shaping. What teens practice, how they soothe themselves, how they handle stress, how they treat others, can become smoother pathways. Guidance and supportive environments help those pathways become healthy ones. Fact 100. Emerging adulthood. Many modern researchers describe a stage called emerging adulthood, often spanning roughly ages 18 to 25, associated with Jeffrey Arnett's work. In many societies, this period involves exploration of careers, relationships, values, and identity before long-term commitments fully settle. It's a bridge between adolescence and adulthood, shaped by cultural and economic realities. Psychological research suggests this stage can include both excitement and uncertainty. Freedom expands, and so does responsibility. Emerging adults often continue refining executive function, emotional regulation, and self-direction. The comforting truth is that development does not end at 18. The brain and identity continue unfolding, often becoming more stable with time and experience. In a gentle bedtime sense, emerging adulthood is like a dawn that arrives slowly, not a sudden switch. You don't become yourself overnight. You become yourself through seasons of trying, learning, revising, and quietly returning to what feels true. As we come to the end of this long, quiet journey through child psychology and growth, you don't need to hold every detail. You don't need to memorize anything at all. Tonight is not for testing yourself. It's simply for letting understanding wash over you like warm water, so your mind can soften into rest. You might imagine these ideas like snow falling in a quiet field, each fact landing softly, not demanding anything, simply becoming part of the landscape. And if you're listening as you fall asleep, you can allow your brain to do what it naturally does at night: integrate, sort, and release. Nothing here was meant as medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, only gentle education, the kind you can rest beside. If something you heard reminded you of your own childhood or of someone you love, you don't need to chase the thought. You can simply notice it with kindness and let it drift onward. Thank you for spending this time with Rare Mindset. And now, as the night continues, you can return to the simplest rhythm of all. Breathing in slowly, and breathing out even more slowly. No effort, no urgency, just a mind that has learned something quiet about growth, and a body that is allowed to rest.